Hoops Talk podcast. I'm your host Dan DeWitt. We got Gil here with me, and I know last week we tried to tease a little bit, or I don't even know if it's been a week and a half, whatever it's been, but we tried to tease a little debate we're going to have here on this podcast. We've had to postpone that as Blake couldn't make it today, so we will get into that at some point. I promise. Especially if the rotations, if you didn't listen to the last one,
Why
the
don't we
little
just have the debate without Blake?
well, then it's not a debate. Then it's us talking about the same points. But we will get into that at some point. Again, like I said, especially if the rotations keep going the way they have been, even in these non-conference kind of cupcakes, as we were to call them. So we'll get into that. Sorry, we have to postpone that. If you're here for that, we apologize. But again, subscribe. Make sure you got those notifications on so that you can participate that in live on YouTube here as we go. But Gil, you ready to get going here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So since the last time we did podcast, we have Elon and Furman, as we mentioned last game. I think they went. I guess I'll let you answer, but according to plan, right? According to how we expected.
I would say so for the most part. Yeah, I mean, 2 wins as expected. We saw, I think, a little bit more of the firming of the rotation, not an expansion, but things maybe getting a little bit more clear on who is going to be providing um, valuable minutes for this team. And we saw one game where the guards looked fantastic. We saw one game where the bigs carried the weight.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning too. I think it was Blake. One of you two on the last podcast kind of mentioned consistency, and it's great to have five guys that can kind of score 20 in any game or go off. We don't know who the other team can't just plan for one or two guys. We got several that can go off, but there is something to say about a little bit of consistency game to game. And like you said, we had the guards go off and the bigs, and in one sense, I guess that's good. It's harder for the other team to game plan, but I think there is something to say about consistency. So we'll kind of get into that. 300 here on YouTube is podcasting. We're looking good, right? I did title this podcast 5-game winning streak. I meant to go fact check, but I'm pretty sure that's right. We got 5 games going so far.
Sounds right.
Okay, you fact checked just as much as I did. So, yeah, Elon, 80-63 win. You know, again, I like we said, I think kind of as projected. I don't feel like we were ever in doubt that we were going to win this game. We probably didn't extend and win by as much as maybe we should have. Really quickly, Caleb Love had 22 in this game. Garcia had 22 in this game. 7 rebounds for him. RJ Davis 11, and actually those 3 are the only ones in double figures. Mondo finished with 9 and 7. Leaky had 8 rebounds in that game. And like you said, kind of shoring up the rotation here. And it started even in the Michigan game. We've talked about a little bit, but Anthony Harris kind of stepping into that wing backup for Leaky, kind of our secondary lockdown defender on the wing. But yeah, like you said, really shoring up the minutes here between kind of the 7 guys, the 5 starters, and then Brady Manick and Anthony Harris. So Carolyn Walton still getting 5 to 7 minutes a game, but not giving us a lot. And that's pretty much the rotation right now. Furman, 74-61 win again at home. It was the second 20-point game for Garcia. He had 20 and 10 in this game. Mondo had 14 and 12. Caleb Love had 6 rebounds, 4 assists. Brady Manick had 13 and 6. RJ Davis didn't shoot the ball well and just 6 points, but had 7 assists to 1 turnover in this game. Leaky Black, maybe the story of the night, had 2 threes, ended up with 9 points, 5 rebounds. And he, I think, is kind of definitely has locked his position in the starting lineup, in the minutes that he's getting. I don't know. What else do you got to say about these 2 games, maybe?
Yeah, so I'm going to focus a little bit on the rotation you touched on. It seems pretty clear. Well, at least what we saw in the last 2 games was Garcia starting and Manick coming off the bench. Garcia getting closer to 30 plus minutes a game, with Manick getting more like 19, maybe 20. And then likewise, Leaky obviously starting and getting 26 to 30 minutes, and then Anthony Harris coming in, filling in for him, and playing some really great D. Um, so I think there's a lot of solidification there of that rotation in those areas. And yeah, Kerwin, very minimal production so far this season, and be interesting to see moving forward whether he can find his touch again, find his range. That would be nice for us. Yeah, 1 3 and one long, two for Leaky. I was wondering about that when I looked at the box score. I thought it was 2 threes in the flow of the game, but then when I looked at the box score, I only saw that he made 1 3. So yeah, the other one he must have had a toe on the line, which unfortunately has been kind of something I've seen all too much out of our team so far this season. A few times Garcia doing it, and a handful of others. Uh, One other thing, Leaky Black has been like great on the rebounding, offensively and defensively. I've noticed over these past several games. So I really love that he's bringing that, because particularly when Mondo goes out of the game, Garcia and Manic are a little bit more finesse players. They're getting some boards for sure. You mentioned the double double last night from Garcia, but it's nice to have someone else contributing to cleaning up the glass.
Well, and yeah, thanks 300 for correcting me there with the only 1 3 for leaking along too. But Garcia, I mean Furman was playing four guards and a big, and their big was like 6'7". So Garcia had a guy like 6'4". So if we don't take advantage of that inside, and if Garcia doesn't have a big game, that kind of says more about us than it does about anything else. So it was good to see. He had what 11 of our first 15. I mean, the commentators even said it. It was like 7 minutes gone and he had 11 points already. And so, technically he probably could have had a bigger night than just 20 points and 10 rebounds, but it is good to see us take advantage of those mismatches. I think in the past we've had people kind of on the verge of foul trouble, or we've had a mismatch and we just kind of play in the flow and wouldn't just attack that. We've seen that I think a few times now with Hubert Davis as the coach. Mondo against I'm going to say his last name wrong if I say it, but the big guy from Michigan, when he had got that third foul, we went right back to Mondo. He got the fourth one, and now with Garcia attacking, and even with Mondo in the second half, because he didn't have a great first half. Well, as a team, we didn't necessarily. We were tied at 39 at the first half, but in the post game, the players were talking about it. Well, they were asked about it, but Hubert emphasized getting it inside against this Furman team that was overmatched height wise, and we took advantage of that. So, that's good on our part of. I mean, it's just smart basketball, to take advantage of where you have the advantages. So yeah, 5 game winning streak for the Tar Heels here. You got anything to finish up on these games before we transition here?
I
All
would
right,
just
so
echo those
oh,
sentiments. It's good to see the adjustments that Hubert Davis is making in game and attacking where we have an advantage. That is something that we've lacked and failed to capitalize on in previous seasons. So it's good to see that, and ultimately, we're getting wins.
yeah, and I guess before we move on, big the 300 here says big game Saturday. We'll get into that in just a second, but something you kind of mentioned before is we got this debate for rotations coming up. We're not going to get into that, but the starting lineup, kind of preseason or right before the season started, Hubert kind of says it's going to rotate. It's not going to be set, but I think it is fair as you've mentioned or as you noted. It feels like it's kind of locked in now with Garcia at the 4, Mondo at the 5, and then Leaky, RJ, and Caleb. So just kind of interesting. I hadn't thought about that a lot either, but it feels like that's kind of locked in, and I don't know if maybe they're still looking at the defensive grades, and that's just how it's coming out. But it feels like it's kind of locked in more than that. So
Well,
yeah,
we've got
big
a
game.
trend emerging. I would say we've got a trend emerging there, and if it continues, then it is, it moves past being the trend to being that's what it is. That's the starting lineup. So I just wanted to note that trend. We see Garcia getting the starting position and Manic coming off the bench, and
Which is
yeah,
nothing
so
wrong
we'll
with
see if
that.
that continues. No, nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And
It,
if Garcia plays the way he did last night, which was a fantastic game, inside and out, and he facilitated as well. He had some nice assists. So we'd love to see more of that, and he certainly has earned that role. And Manic, he struggled a little bit honestly against Elon, and played a really productive game against Furman in somewhat limited minutes. But he came in and he made an impact. He got some offensive rebounds. He scored some tough baskets down low. He finally got his touch and got a three in. I think he's been just a little off with his touch, but I'd like to see a few more minutes with him and a few more made threes. But I think we're starting to see the rotation shake out.
Yep. And so as our commentator on YouTube is, or a commenter, I should say, on YouTube is saying, 300 is people will see how good we are Saturday. So I guess I'll remind you if you want to kind of join in the conversation, be commenting, get up on the screen here on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and hit that bell to notify you when we go live because we're all over the place about when we do this. It's after a game, it's middle of the day here, so make sure you hit that, and we'd love to have you join us when you can. But um, big game on Saturday. We got UCLA again. I meant to look it up before, but I think they're still top five, right? I believe they're either 3 or 4, depending what poll you look at. But it's the UCLA Bruins in the CBS Sports Classic in Las Vegas, Nevada. It is a 3 p.m. Eastern tip on Saturday, and it will be obviously played on CBS as it is the CBS Sports Classic. Before we kind of jump into this one, because it's probably the biggest one we got, um, other games we got coming up over Christmas or Christmas break or around Christmas time. We got Appalachian State, December 21st. That's a Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern tip. It says ACC Network for TV on that one. And then we got over a week off, obviously with Christmas in there. December 29th, we play Virginia Tech at home, 7 p.m. Eastern tip on ESPN2. And then New Year's Day, January 1st is a Saturday. It'll be a noon Eastern tip on ACC Network against or at Boston College. And then we're fully into ACC play as we get into that. But just kind of want to mention those. I don't know how much we'll get to all those games. But that's what we got coming up here, at least before the next podcast. So UCLA here. What is a successful game for the Tar Heels going into UCLA? Do we need to get a win to kind of prove something to get in back into the top 25 rankings? If we play them tight, are you good with that? How's your attitude going into Saturday's game?
Feeling a lot more optimistic now after the 5 games than the 2 losses in Connecticut. I show UCLA as the number 4 ranked team, and I think they played Gonzaga and beat Gonzaga in a close one at home that they hosted. And we've seen Gonzaga actually struggle just a little bit against the top 25, losing to Alabama. So I think that we can be competitive. We should be competitive, and I think we can win. And I joked with Dan here before we got started, this could be the difference between getting a 3 seed or a 6 seed, potentially a win or a loss here, because as you mentioned, the non-conference games are starting to close out, and this is our last big one, our last true test, neutral court. And we have played up and down, really, to be honest, in this CBS Sports Classic over the past 5-6 seasons. We played Kentucky really great, ultimately in a losing effort years ago when in 2017, 2016. And we showed up really well. Was that last year that we beat UCLA? A recent season that we needed a big win and we got a win against them. But we've also had some where we didn't show up. So I'd like to see us show up with some great energy, enthusiasm, and ready to play and take it to UCLA. I think they're beatable. I think that we have the tools and right pieces in place where we can challenge them.
Yeah, I think the hype on UCLA has kind of died down when it was, preseason. Obviously they were number 2 right behind Gonzaga. And we had that matchup with them looming in there, and there's just I felt like a lot of hype. I watched and I'll correct you here. They beat Villanova early in the season, and then they actually got blown out by Gonzaga by 20,
Okay.
83. But the
All
big
right.
win they had
That's right. The
was
close one was
Villanova,
Villanova.
and then
Yep.
after that, I feel like I haven't seen that they've been on TV. Maybe it's who they played and stuff, but I just feel like the hype has kind of died down and yeah, I don't know if that's again
Well,
because who they played or how they're playing, but
I think people forget last year because they made such a great run in the NCAA tournament to reach the finals, or excuse me, to reach to the semifinals and ultimately take Gonzaga all the way to the overtime. That was a thriller of a contest, but they were in the play-in game. They were an 11
right.
seed in a play-in game, and they got hot at the right time of the season, which is what great teams do to close out seasons. And kudos to them for doing that. And so far in this season, yeah, I mean, beating Villanova is always a great win. That was at home, and I think they started out with the lead and kind of surrendered it, and it got really tight at the end. And then they got blown out by Gonzaga. Yeah, so thanks for reminding me of that. So I think that they're very beatable. This would be a great win for Hubert's resume, for this team's NCAA resume, which could really bolster our seeding. Uh, as we hope to compete for an ACC championship, regular season championship, I think we'll be in the running for that. So, but getting another really nice looking non-conference win on your resume would be great.
Yeah, and that's not to mention, Villanova, obviously a great program last few years. Good team this year. They've been top 10, but they just lost to or Baylor, which is no slouch because Baylor's number 1 now, but they only scored 37 points and made like 12 shots total against Baylor in the whole game. So, I mean, again, good team still, Villanova, you don't doubt them, but how good is the win over that? I agree with you. I think UCLA is definitely beatable, and I don't hate the matchup with them. They have Johnny
Hmm.
Juzang, which I think Leaky and again Ant can kind of go on there and limit him. That we've seen them do excellent jobs on defense on leading scorers in the nation and stuff like that. They do have I'm not going to say his name right, but Javier, or whoever the other point guard is, who I think Caleb Love can match up well with on defense. And then they have the little
I
point
think
guard.
that's the key matchup in this game is the point guard limiting their point guard to getting them in the flow of their offense and what they want to do. If he's able to do that, then it could be a long day for us defensively. If we're able to dictate the terms and get them out of their offensive rhythm, then I think it's going to be a good day for us. So
Yeah,
I think that's the key matchup in this one.
yeah, and their other point guard is small, so I think RJ has if not just a scratch, even an advantage over him. And then I like our advantage
He's
in the
experienced though.
bigs. He is, but I mean RJ is a sophomore now. He's got a lot of minutes under his belt. RJ is, and he's crafty, and I don't think he necessarily gets the credit defensively that he I don't think he's as good as Ant and Leaky and stuff, but he's solid defensively. I think most time he's just he's overmatched as far as height goes.
It's just the
Uh,
size. Yep.
right. So, and I think we have the advantage inside. I mean, I with Garcia, with Manic, and then and the Baycott down low. I think there's not anybody. I haven't seen UCLA. I know they were missing one of their big guys against Gonzaga, Riley, who was the starting center last year in the big tournament run. I don't know if he's back or not, but definitely if he's not, I mean, nobody scares me inside to where Manic and Garcia and Baycott, all of them can't be effective and efficient. And so, yeah, again, as 300 saying here, it would be a huge confidence boost for us, getting a big win. Just like Michigan, get that big win, and then we validate it as all the guys were saying and Hubert was saying. We get this another big win here away from home. Top 5 team. I mean that would have to be huge, and obviously that would push it to a 6-game winning streak heading into the other games we mentioned. We have to say App State is an expected win unless something goes wrong there. We
Yeah, we
said
need
kind
to
of
make
before
sure we
we
don't have a
started,
letdown
right?
against any of those lesser non-conference
And
opponents.
and it is, obviously over Christmas, people get a little bit time off, you get, distracted, whatever it is. But as we said before, we went live. Virginia Tech's down a little bit. That's our next game right after Christmas. Boston College, even though it's on the road, you have to expect if everything goes as planned that we'd be favored and we should win that game. And so we're heading into the new year then on what is that? Almost a 10-game winning streak. You'd have to say our confidence and our ranking and all that stuff would be way up there. But let's move. Unless you got something else to add to UCLA, let's just kind of those other games that I just ran through. Things that stand out to you, stuff you'll kind of be watching in those games in general. There,
Well, like you said, if we are able to take advantage and get a win against UCLA, making sure we don't get a letdown coming back across the country and playing just a few days later against Appalachian State, make sure that you take care of business. You validate that win if you get it, and if you don't get it against UCLA, make sure you bounce back going into ACC play, rebuild that confidence. But hopefully, we're seeing, like you said, a streak of wins here. Hopefully, we take care of business against Virginia Tech. Like you said, they've been a little down at this point of the season. I feel like we owe them from past couple seasons, not really getting the job done against them. And I think we should match up well against them. To be honest, I think we're a much more athletically talented team. We're a better shooting team, and we've got the inside presence to compete with Aluma and then getting a huge win on the road in ACC to take us into the new year looking good, set up well at the top of the league. That's what I'm hoping to see.
Yeah, and again, we'll see what happens Saturday, but from there, I kind of like, we have to like this team heading into the new year, and of
I
course,
did just notice, Dan, sorry to cut you off, that it is a quick turnaround, that Virginia Tech game, and then it's 2 days later against Boston College on the road. Is that one of those Saturday, Monday turnarounds that the ACC does?
it is Wednesday to Saturday.
Oh, Wednesday to Saturday.
Virginia
It's a
Tech's
little bit of a
Wednesday,
tight
Boston College
turnaround
Saturday. But
on
yeah, with the
Saturday. Okay,
travel there, it is.
just going on the road. Yeah,
Yep.
just making sure we take care of business. I think this team seems to be focused and locked in to do just that. From what I've seen here in the recent games, Hubert has them focused. The defensive transformation, I'll say, we had to start the season 4 or 5 games where the opposing team was averaging like 83 points a game. I don't know the definitive statistic there. And then over the last 5 games, we've been holding everyone under 63. So we need to continue that trend.
Yep, for sure. And I think on that we got this kind of covered. We'll be back with big things in the new year. Everybody have a great holidays, Merry Christmas, have a good New Year, and most importantly, go Heels.